Welcome to Burn the Ship. This is the podcast where we connect entrepreneurs or professionals that can help you go all in on your business. We talk to people that have walked the walk, talked the talk, been through all the things that we experience as small business owners, and are willing to share those skills and experiences with us so that we can run our businesses more successfully. So, Derek, thank you very much for being on the podcast today. I appreciate your time. Anyone that shares time with me, shares time with the audience to teach us something is super, super valuable. So I appreciate that very, very much, first of all. But why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and about the business that you're in?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me. It's a new experience for me for sure, but I definitely share the passion of just business in general and curiosity and things of that nature. But so I founded a company, Herb Garden Co. Wanted to kind of have a little bit of a play on like, oh, I'm going to the herb garden, right? Eventually, there might be storefronts in the future, things like that. But it's a hemp-derived edible company. So a lot of people may not know this, but the 2018 Farm Bill, which covers everything to do with agriculture, actually does include hemp in there as well. And so basically that what that did was somebody put a clause, or I'm not sure the right terminology in there, where hemp and all things extracted from hemp were legal nationwide, basically. I think some people, there's a little bit of confusion. Hemp and cannabis are kind of like twin plants, right? But they just have different molecules. And so you can get everything that you need from, like, for example, a sleep perspective that you'd get from a cannabis plant. You can get that from hemp. So that's why we chose the hemp derived route, is because I can sell nationwide, and essentially any company where their state or city doesn't have other bans in place would be able to put Herb Garden Co. on the shelf.
Nice. And so, what's that process been like for you now? How did you decide to get into that industry? Like, what made you decide that this was the industry for you? And is the model to get into retail locations to sell direct to consumer on your website? What's kind of the market strategy?
Yeah, there's a lot there. So when I first bought my LLC, or the rights or the name or what have you, I think that was over 3 years ago. And at the time, the idea was going to be just strictly CBD. I wasn't aware yet of the 2018 Farm Bill, so I didn't realize you could have other things besides CBD and what have you. And then that got put on hold a little bit due to a bout of unemployment. But the reasoning behind that was I had started taking CBD probably 5 years prior to that, like every day. And just everything went away, all the little aches and pains and the issues. And like, I don't know, I lost some weight. There was just so many things that seemed to kind of optimize. So that sparked me just doing a really deep dive. Audible is my best friend. I think I've listened to every single book on there possibly that has to do with
Mhm.
CBD, hemp, plant-based medicines, terpenes, all that kind of stuff. So then that reinvigorated the drive to want to start the company. And so then once I found out about the 2018 Farm Bill, and now like things like THC and CBN and CBG, which we can maybe get a little bit into later, are now all available and legal to put in a product. Um, and so then yeah, kind of just went on the search. I tried to find something for myself to use first for like a year and a half. I kind of searched the local market here in Minnesota. And I had a lot of check boxes. I'm a pretty picky kind of ingredient conscious person. And I couldn't find it. So then all of a sudden, like, I don't know, just everything kind of pointed to, hey, if this is what you want and you want something natural, you don't want melatonin, you don't want sleeping pills. I personally gave up alcohol a little over a year ago, so nightcaps aren't a thing anymore. It was you got to start the road of starting this thing up, and so really, kind of just did it on the side, almost a little bit in secret. Just paid like $500 for somebody, a designer on Upwork, to get me a logo as a starting place. And then from there, just reached out to some local manufacturers that made gummies, trying to see if, hey, this is, do you do custom formulas, that kind of stuff. And I guess eventually it just kind of was like, wow, this is real. I have all the pieces put together to kind of make this happen. And so I decided to just kind of go for it. And so I bought 10,000 gummies from a local manufacturer here after 5 rounds of R&D to get the product right. And then my approach thus far has been get on physical shelves here in Minnesota, I mean, main reason being, right, is give people a different alternative, a different vice that I personally view as much healthier than a lot of other ones that are out there. Like that's a big part of it. But then just get some consistent revenue from those local shops where I can build rapport, shake a hand, that kind of thing. And then use that to do other things, whether it be marketing, rebranding, direct to consumer. All of those things are in some way, shape, or form kind of in motion right now in the background. Um, so I would love to say that I just like I for sure have this exact heading,
Sure.
but it's kind of been like I had this foundation. My background is sales. I made a really good formula. It took me forever to be confident in it and lose the old imposter syndrome. And so I just was like, let's go for it. I want to shake some hands and talk to people. That's where I thrive. Um,
Sure.
and one thing I will say is it definitely allows people to see the passion, in like the I'm hesitant to say knowledge, but like I've put a lot of time and effort into learning. So like the knowledge that went into the formulas and stuff like that too. So it makes a big difference. And then even furthermore, for me, I can tell within 5 minutes why they're in business, right? Whether it's just another way to make money, and so it's just margins and revenue, or if it's a deeper story behind it, similar to my search for a natural sleep aid without side effects and things like that.
Sure. Absolutely. No, it makes sense to me. And I wanted to ask another question, kind of elaborating on that. My industry in the payments industry is very picky about what they allow um, in terms of e-commerce sales for CBD or cannabis or any of that, anything in that world. The rules are a little bit different for retail, but still pretty picky, right? It seems like they've kind of leaned into anything that has been implemented across the board, attestation letters, all of these different things. Um, what type of regulation really is there in your industry? Like what were the hoops that you have to jump through when you're going through the R&D process and all the other things to know that I have all of these boxes checked and I can approach people for retail relationships?
Yeah, well, you bring up a good one with banking. So I use just a big national bank personally. Um, And so right away, my first thought was just, okay, a business account with them, just went there and asked for, to talk to someone. And then all of a sudden it was getting bombarded with everything you just mentioned, right? Attestation. And I think there was going to be like a 8-page questionnaire or something like that I was going to have to fill out. And so I said, hold on, before I put in the work here, I'm going to go to some local shops and just talk to people in the local industry and kind of see who they use, just to kind of get some input on, who best to use. And so I'm banking with I don't know if it matters if I say, but North American Banking Company here in Maple Grove, Minnesota, and they made it super super easy. I mean, there's definitely a lot of hoops and stuff, right? I had to sign the attestation form. I had to give them, which I've never owned a business before, so I'm sure a lot of it is like every business has to do most of it, right? Your EIN number and all that kind of good
Yeah.
stuff, of course. Um, One thing that's kind of interesting and it's not a big deal is they have asked for updated COAs, so certificate of authenticity is what we have to do for testing on every single batch of gummies here in Minnesota. And the bank is actually not initially, but now they have changed and they've started asking for those COAs. And so I think they basically need that as proof that I am still abiding by the attestation that I signed. I think is kind of
Sure.
how that works. Um, so that's as far as like the banking side of it. And then I think there are some other things that are affected a little bit because of the CBD industry and THC industry specifically. Like I think my checks take an extra day to clear. I want to say I don't know if that'll eventually clear up as I get numerous checks from a specific retailer or what have you. But there's a lot of like seemingly low limitations and little things that I have to like call in every time and talk to them. Again, maybe that's standard with business, as you're starting out because they need to, like see proof of success and what have you. But that's been my experience. And then I do have a website. It started really just as a nice to have and kind of still is a nice to have for family and friends. And so I ended up using Square for that one. Um, Similarly, I guess they had a pretty easy process to get into what they call their CBD program. I think it maybe would be better called the hemp program possibly
Hmm.
because it would clear up some stuff. Because in every single thing that I look into, you have to understand, do the people in charge understand the difference between cannabis and hemp, or do they even care about it? Like are they a big enough company where it's like, you know what, it's if it's too similar where it's blurred lines, we're not going to touch it with a 10-foot pole kind of thing. Um, so that's why I went with Square because it was just really easy to use. And then as far as other stuff within the industry, right? Packaging, what sort of testing I have to do specific to Minnesota, all that kind of stuff. I just got a lawyer right away. I just said, that's one thing that's worth, making the expense on, right? So created the labels. I would just send them over for review and say, hey, does everything, do we check all the boxes? Before I published my website, I said, hey, read the footers for us, please, and just verify that we're using all the right terminology and what have you. Um, I will say proudly, I collected packages throughout the years of testing and what have you, so I used a lot of those to kind of gauge what was needed. And I think we had all of our bases covered basically. It just mostly was some very specific wording just to protect yourself a little bit more,
Sure.
stuff like that. So yeah, as of now, I think that covers most of the compliance stuff that I've dealt with. Minnesota specifically now, right? We're going from just needing to be a registered hemp business to when they bring on the recreational market, which was voted yes. When they bring that on, then hemp is going to fall under a licensing model as well. So there's going to be more stuff to kind of have to, make sure we're staying on top of. The interesting and kind of a little bit of thorn in the side with that is I was previously in this gray area, right, where I don't have manufacturing equipment, so I'm not a manufacturer, and I don't have a brick and mortar store, so I'm not a retailer. So I didn't really need anything as far as like initial license conversations were, where they were going. But now I've just found out that I'm going to have both manufacturing license and a retailer's license that like renews every year, and like a little application fee for both of them as well. So a couple grand right there, just another kind of surprise expense, if you will, all rooted in compliance and changes and updates and things like that.
Yeah, laid on you by the government too. Just
Yep.
you got you got updated on that one. Hey, we've added a couple extra fees in there for you next year. It's tough. Your industry really does kind of get the short end of the stick, and I've always given this perspective on it, which is um it's all about chargebacks, right? Like the fear for credit card processors is that you sell $100,000 worth of stuff in a month and you never send it to anybody, and everybody charges it back, and you're gone to the Cayman Islands with no money in your bank account. Now the processor holds the bag for that $100,000 of stuff you never sent anybody, right? Like, and that is a super super like rare and egregious example, right? But that's kind of the
Yep.
the fear, is that there are customers out there that aren't happy and they find it difficult to recover those funds from you. And the rebuttal that I have to that is, what are things that people never charge back, right? Like, no one ever charges back a trip to the liquor store, or a trip
True.
to the dispensary, or when you're buying CBD gummies and things like that is literally probably the lowest percentage chargeback industry in the world. People
Yeah.
are always happy with their purchases for whatever reason, right? So like the risk and compliance and this and that, like, I understand the trying to mitigate the people that are actually going to be nefarious with the ability that it gives you to move money around, but I think it is such a small portion of that industry that is planning something nefarious. And most of the people that I've talked to in your industry, especially the ones that are clients of mine, um they they're spiritually connected, if you will, to the remedy that they're bringing people. You know what I mean? Like, they
Yep.
have a personal use case story of why this impacted their lives and why they got into this industry and why they're passionate about it and why they learned so much about it. And you are the same way, if not more, knowledgeable about this industry. And so I think that if you're listening to this podcast, the compliance stuff shouldn't scare you, and you shouldn't enter this industry thinking that it's mostly over, right? Because there's going to be more. There's going to be more hoops to jump through, but there's a reason that there are so many customers and so much total adjustable market for this industry, because people love the product and it makes a real difference in people's lives. So, um, hopefully, if you are looking to get into the industry, maybe Derek or someone else can give you some perspective on what you're going to have to jump through, but don't let it scare you. And from the outside looking in, it looks like your willingness to learn about your industry and find the things that you need to do to be successful, as well as a good sales acumen and ability to build relationships with retailers and put your product out there into the world, at least for me, in 15 minutes worth of conversation, it really seems like those are kind of core pillars of what has helped you make your business successful. But in your own words, what is kind of your superpower, right? What is the thing that you do that lends you to success more than anything else that you do? What is the most important attribute that you have that helps you win?
It's a really great question. I feel like I've been asked it before, um, but in a different way. Um, I think it's just showing up. I don't know what it is. Like, for example, I'll watch, like a reel on Instagram or something like that, and somebody talking about their business, and it's whoa this, whoa that. And honestly, even thinking right now, there's a lot of things that I didn't bring up that would be speed bumps and, different things and obstacles and what have you. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because I use my products and what have you, and part of it is, anti-anxiety and, relaxation and different stuff like that. But it's just not taking anything like too hard, I guess maybe is the way to say it. And just I don't know, it's just been really easy for me to look at it as like it's part of the process. And just to anybody out there considering getting into it, if you're in it for the reason that I'm in it, like there's always motivation, right? Like I'm hearing stories every day about people with extreme insomnia, excuse me, where nothing has ever worked, and my product works. And so like that, I think is probably the reason kind of behind that, right? Of being able to just, take the next speed bump in stride and go for it. But I think, yeah, I think it's just sticking through it, showing up. And I didn't realize it before, but none of my previous roles really filled, meaning like my corporate sales life, never really fulfilled that apparently gap in me that was wanting to like help people. You know what I mean? Like have a positive impact on the world, or maybe that's dramatic, but it wasn't doing that, right? Like I was saving companies money, but I never saw anybody or heard any stories of like somebody's role or life actually getting improved. And that's part of this industry almost on a daily basis. And so that's a really great driver, I guess.
No, I can agree. I share some of the same sentiments about my own industry, right? Like there's a bit of fortune involved in my industry. There's a bit of luck, right? You kind of have to find somebody that has a specific need or a specific pain or is at a specific point in their business to really explain the value that you can bring in that certain situation. Um, and I think the ability to show up over and over again is the band-aid that wouldn't say it cures all, but it cures a lot. I'll tell you that. The conviction that which you approach your business with cannot be replaced, I guess, is really the best way to say it. Um, you have to go hard. You know what I mean? You really do have to go hard. And that doesn't mean like wearing yourself out, working 100 hours a day and calling 2,000 people a day. Like it's not that, but steady, constant pressure, can topple any mountain, and you have to be willing to stick to it for a period of time that's undisclosed to you before you enter that journey. That's just what entrepreneurship is. Well, I appreciate the information and the insight on your industry. I'm very interested to see where your industry continues to develop, because I'm in Atlanta. We're still taking 16-year-old kids to jail for weed, for a gram of weed here. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
there is no we have medical licensing? So no medical, no retail, no CBD, no nothing here. Right, like I
Interesting.
even see gas stations get shut down for selling whatever it is that they sell around us all the time. So I'm from my perspective, I'm very, very curious to see where your industry goes and how your business excels, like I know it will. And if there's anything that we can do in the meantime, introductions that we can make, or introductions to retailers, or anything in that general ballpark, just let me know. I probably can put my eyes on some stuff and make some introductions for you pretty easy. But for both myself and the audience, how can we support you? What are the things that you have coming up, and how can we help add a little fuel to that fire?
I mean, the biggest thing right now, man, is show some love on the socials. Or, I mean, if you got an issue sleeping, right, that's my cornerstone product. It's like I can't, I have to talk about it as in, right, like people's experiences. So the reviews I've gotten, my experience, so my good friends' experience, family's experience is they're finding sleep. They're finding a lot of really good sleep and everything. I think nothing else matters really unless you're getting that. So I don't want to come on here and like try to like sell, right? But like there's been enough responses and reviews and stuff of people having success with it. So herbgardenco.com is where you can check it out. There's 50% off of a first purchase. Um, I want to mention one thing that you said about the industry that surprises me, that there's still places out there that are so strict about everything. And hopefully this newfound, not newfound, right, but this kind of like there's a cannabis lane here and there's a hemp lane
Yeah, kind of
here.
changing
And
perspective, differentiating those things for
yeah, I mean,
sure.
it's just different conversations. And now, like, right, like Minnesota's had one of the most successful low dose hemp industry rollouts, I think, ever. Like, I can go to a lot of restaurants and get a THC beverage and stuff. So, like, maybe people will see that, and then they'll also see all the successes from the recreational cannabis states that are legalized, and eventually open up to it. I just hope it isn't something on the back end. I don't want to allude to too much, right? But I hope it's not some other interests or something where it's like it doesn't matter, they're never going to do it kind of thing. um, but that's part of it, man. Break the stigma, spread the word, bring more and more real life examples of these kind of things being beneficial, so to the point where it just can't be refuted, right? Or you just can't ignore it, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think it will. I think it will. I think it happens. You know what I mean? Like, we're 100-year anniversary of prohibition was not that long ago. You know what I mean? So there's always a change. There's always a paradigm shift, and cooler heads prevail, and healthy stuff gets sold. And I really think that that's what it is, right? Like, it's been weed in general has been demonized so long by the media that like, even my parents remember the anti-weed commercials and stuff when they were kids, but like, dude, that it's going away. The science
Yeah,
behind it is changing, and how people feel about it is changing. And I really think that you and some of the other entrepreneurs that I know in your space are kind of carving out your lane at a really, really cool time. So I'm excited to bring some support and to try your product, and to see how I can help you guys grow in the future. So
yeah, for sure.
thank you for
Give
coming.
me an
If you're
address.
listening,
Give me an
go
address
ahead.
if you
Okay.
don't mind. Not on here, obviously, right? But I'll throw you some product, and we can chat offline and see about getting you a couple containers, because that's what I've been selling, man. I didn't get into that much, but it's been samples. I've even had places like basically commit to an order before samples, and I request that they still do it, because that's what sells. When somebody says, "Look,
Sure.
my best client, his wife took it. The very next day, they called me and ordered 300 of them."
Yeah.
Because they said best night of sleep of my life, and now they've been my number one customer, right? Because of her experience, and she just tells her story. Um, but yeah, anyways, I'd be happy to get you samples. And then one last thing I want to leave with is I just started the look outside of Minnesota, right? So I did a search for other places that have 5 milligram per serving cap on their edibles for hemp derived, and that's Connecticut and Vermont, I think. So I've just got my first meeting with an owner out there in Connecticut. I'm going to be talking to them, trying to expand Herb Garden Co. Elsewhere. Honestly, dude, like
I
I
know
told
some
everybody I'm
doctors
not
out
trying
that
to
way.
say
Do you
again.
know, will like chiropractic offices and things like that be beneficial to you? I know some doctors out that way that own like a bunch of chiropractors.
I definitely I think a lot of them are willing to maybe like throw a card on their desk, like that kind of thing, like refer type stuff. Like I've done that. Like I have an information
These
sheet
people
and
are
what
in
have
like
you.
Greenwich, Connecticut, where it's like the highest per capita of millionaires in the world. It's like a 45-minute drive from Wall Street, but it's just this offshoot of Wall Street where all of these insanely, like, I think the average house there costs like 2.5 million bucks, but all it's the hedge fund capital of the world, right? So like the
Okay.
10 biggest hedge funds in the world are all there. And a couple of the people that I got super lucky meeting there are in like the wellness, like the weight loss clinic type of thing, or the chiropractic space, super high ticket stuff like that. And they house an inventory of products. They have it's almost like your chiropractor gift shop.
Okay.
Um, so
Dude, absolutely,
they
man. I
might
would
store
love to
stuff.
have
They're
that
those
conversation.
clients are used to a different thing, right? They're not used to go find it on your own. They're used to I already have it and I'll sell it to you because you don't really care what it costs if you like it, right? So
Got it.
I can make some introductions for you in that world. That the Connecticut is an insane place. There's just a ridiculous amount of money in small pockets of Connecticut, and then
Huh.
everywhere else is completely different. But I can make some introductions for you there.
That'd be amazing, man. I mean, any conversation I can have is valuable, right? I ask everybody for feedback, even if we don't do business or whatever, because it's all about just improving the product and trying to spread the word and stuff like that. So yeah, I had no idea about that, but for sure, man. I mean, any conversation is worth it just to see if it's a fit, right? And like you brought this up earlier, but I think most people in this industry, especially for the reasons that like I find myself in it for, I'm not trying to, retire and buy a $5 million mansion in LA on the hills or something like that, right? Like it's just I need to make money, obviously, right? But it's just the other drive is just it's just way too strong. It's not monetarily um, motivated, I guess. And so yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I agree with
Sure,
you that people are in it for that reason, and hopefully eventually processors, banks, what have you, don't just put it like a one umbrella over everybody. Hopefully they're open to conversations, individual situations, track records, maybe things that'll make it a lot easier for us in this industry at some point.
sure. No, I think it definitely will. And like I said, if you're listening to this, don't be scared to research the industry, find out things about it, find out things that you can do uniquely to that industry, and talk to people that are in it. This is a thing that's going to grow. It's not going away, and it's going to get more popular, and people are going to get more comfortable with it because they're going to understand how to make money in that space as well. So trust me, you are currently in this revolution of CBD and hemp and cannabis and all these other things becoming absolutely commercialized. You're seeing it happen right in front of you, and if you're in that industry, or if it's something that interests you, and you have that heart to find products that help people, it's probably a good space for you. As I feel about you, Derek, I think that you're a perfect fit for this industry. Um,
Thanks, man.
and I've talked to people that weren't, you know what I mean? I've talked to people that thought there were some cash grab opportunities, or, some good marketers that thought they could do some crafty stuff online. And I won't process payments for them. I don't believe in their product. I don't believe that their customers are going to believe in their product. And I don't feel any of those ways about you. You know what I mean? I heard your story. We've talked now for, an hour, an hour and some change now. So it's cool to see how far you've come, and I look forward to being an asset to that in the future. And for you guys listening to Burn the Ship, if there's anything that we can do for you guys, anybody that you want to see on Burn the Ship, please let us know in the comments below, and we'll try to get them on. We do a pretty good job. So until next time, burn the ship. Go hard.